Admiral N had seen 3,000 battles in his long career. His species, had conquered 42 star systems and brought order to the chaotic Perseus arm of the galaxy. He commanded 200 warships, each one capable of glassing a planet in hours. When his scouts reported a small human mining colony on 442b refusing to pay tribute, he expected this to be like every other conquest. Quick, clean, easy. The colony had sent a distress call 3 days ago. N's fleet had arrived to find the small moon heavily defended by mining equipment turned into makeshift weapons. Amusing but pointless. He sent the standard message demanding surrender. The humans refused. They said help was coming. N laughed at that. Help? From where? Humanity had only just discovered faster-than-light travel 2 years ago. They had no empire, no great fleet, nothing but a handful of colonies scattered across a dozen systems. The intelligence reports said humans were cautious, nervous, still figuring out their place in the galaxy. The reports were wrong. Space itself tore open. Hyperspace windows bloomed like flowers made of lightning and twisted physics. 7 ships emerged. They were smaller than cruisers, built with strange angles and brutal efficiency. Scorch marks covered their hulls. Patches of different colored metal showed where repairs had been made. These were not parade ships. These were fighters. N studied them through his command screen. Human destroyers according to the database. The lead ship bore a name in human script that his computer translated, USS. What did that mean? His cultural files loaded slowly. The end of the world in ancient human mythology, the final battle where gods died. Humans named their warships after the end of the world. Then the music started. At first, N thought his communication systems had malfunctioned. A harsh, distorted sound filled every frequency. It was like nothing he had ever heard. Stringed instruments screamed in ways that seemed physically impossible. Drums pounded like the heartbeat of a dying star. And beneath it all, human voices roared words that the translator struggled to understand but conveyed pure aggression. The sound wasn't just on military channels. It was everywhere. Navigation frequencies, emergency bands, even the civilian channels. The humans had hijacked every form of communication and filled them with this brutal noise. N's second-in-command officer clutched his audio receptors. What is this? What are they doing? The human ships drifted forward. They hadn't activated weapons. They hadn't raised shields. They just moved through space with the music pouring from them like blood from a wound. Every ship had external speakers, dozens of them, all synchronized to blast this aggressive sound across the void. A message came through, a human voice, calm and clear beneath the chaos of music. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from human space. This is your only warning. 30 seconds. 7 small ships against 200 warships, and they gave an ultimatum. N felt something he had not felt in centuries. His primary hearts began to race. His scales, which had not moved since his youth, rippled along his back. This was not fear. They did not know fear. This was something else, something older. His species had evolved from prey animals on there long before they became predators. Deep in their genetic memory lived the knowledge of what a real predator looked like. The music changed. It grew heavier. The drums sounded like artillery fire. The human voices became guttural roars, and the 7 ships began to move in perfect formation, a choreographed dance of death through the stars. Officer pulled up the combat analysis. Admiral, their weapons systems are still dormant. They're not targeting us. They're just playing this noise and moving forward. And watched the lead ship grow larger on the screen. The humans had painted something on its hull, a skull, a human skull. Their own species' death symbol worn as a badge of honor. What kind of species did that? What kind of mind looked at death and decided to celebrate it? Admiral orders. His voice had an edge to it now. The music was affecting the crew. Processed sound differently than humans, but even they could feel the aggression in it. This wasn't just noise. This was intentional. This was psychological warfare refined to an art form. The 30 seconds had passed. The human ships continued forward. Still no weapons, still no shields, just the music and that slow, confident advance. N pulled up the human database files again. He needed to understand. What was this music? The computer identified it as heavy metal from human culture, a genre of aggressive music developed on Earth during their 20th century, used in their wars, used to motivate soldiers, used to intimidate enemies. But why? Why would they use sound as a weapon when they had missiles and nuclear warheads? Then he understood. The humans weren't trying to destroy the fleet. They were trying to make them leave. This was a test. The humans were testing how they would react to pure psychological pressure. Would they fight? Would they negotiate? Would they run? And N, who had fought crystalline hive minds and biological horrors from dark nebulas, who had seen species that could manipulate gravity and others that could phase through solid matter, realized something profound. He had no idea what humans were capable of. The music told him enough. This wasn't the sound of a species that fought for survival. This was the sound of a species that enjoyed the fight. These were predators. These were killers. And they had come to war not with fear or desperation, but with celebration. All ships, N said quietly, withdraw. Admiral's voice was shocked. We outnumber them 30-1. We haven't even engaged. The Council will. The Council, N interrupted, was not here. The Council did not hear this music. The Council does not understand what we're facing. He brought up the tactical display one more time. The 7 human ships had stopped advancing. They waited there, music still blasting, weapons still cold, confident, patient, ready. N had learned to trust his instincts over 3,000 battles. Those instincts had kept him alive when others died. And right now, every instinct in his body screamed the same message. These humans were dangerous in ways the galaxy had not seen before. If we engage, he said slowly, some of us will win, some of us will die, but all of us will learn exactly how humans fight, and I suspect that lesson will cost more than this colony is worth. He opened a channel to the USS. Human Commander, this is Admiral N of the Hegemony. We are withdrawing. Consider this system under human protection. The response came quickly. A human voice, female this time. Acknowledged, Admiral, safe travels. The music didn't stop as the fleet turned. It followed them into hyperspace, echoing across communication channels until the jump coordinates locked in and they fled. Even then, N could still hear it in his mind. The drums, the screaming guitars, the roaring voices. 2 days later, the recordings had spread across 3 sectors. Every major power in the galaxy had heard about the retreat. Most dismissed it as cowardice. Some understood it as wisdom. But N knew the truth. The humans hadn't won because they were stronger. They had won because they were willing to show exactly what kind of species they were. They had turned war into performance, battle into art. They had made violence beautiful and terrifying at the same time. And somewhere in the cold void of space, 7 human destroyers drifted around a mining colony, their speakers silent now, waiting for the next challenge, waiting to play their symphony of war once more. The news reached the Confederacy within a week. Unlike they were not impressed. They were a coalition of 6 aggressive species that had conquered 40 systems through pure military might. They communicated through chemical signals, not sound. The idea that music could be a weapon seemed absurd to them. Warlord, leader of the Third Fleet, reviewed the combat recordings with his senior officers. They watched the ships retreat without firing a shot. They listened to the music, though it meant little to their chemical-based senses. Cowards declared, the fled from noise, we are not so weak. His officers agreed. They had fought the crystalline entities of the Andromeda sector and won. They had crushed the biological swarms of the Dark Zone. 7 small human ships would be nothing. Selected his target carefully. The human research station orbiting the pulsar PSR J0737 was lightly defended and valuable. The humans had been studying the pulsar's unique properties for 3 months. They wanted that research. More importantly, they wanted to prove that humanity's reputation was unearned. They sent a battle group, 83 ships, ranging from fighters to heavy cruisers. Himself would lead the assault. He sent a message to the research station giving them 48 hours to evacuate. He was not wasteful. If the humans wanted to run, he would let them. The humans did not run. Instead, they sent a reply, simple and direct. Negative. This station is human property. Any approach will be considered an act of war. Laughed when he heard it. The chemical signals of amusement spread through his command ship. 62 humans on a research station, no weapons, no defenses, and they refused to leave. Brave, certainly, but bravery without strength was just suicide. When the 48 hours expired, the fleet entered the pulsar system. The research station sat in stable orbit, its lights still on, its communication arrays still active. No defense platforms, no missile batteries, no shields. Then 3 human ships emerged from hyperspace. Not destroyers this time, cruisers, larger, heavier, covered in the same battle scars as the ships from 442B. The lead ship bore the name USS Valkyrie. Its database took longer to translate that word. Valkyrie. In human mythology, supernatural beings who lived and died in battle, who carried warrior souls to the afterlife. Humans named their warships after death itself. The music started immediately, but this time it was different, slower, heavier. The rhythm matched the pulsar's electromagnetic heartbeat, as if the humans had synchronized their war music to the very star system itself. The sound pounded through space, a steady march of drums and distorted instruments that seemed to resonate with the pulsar's energy. Checked his sensors. The human ships weren't transmitting on communication channels this time. They were broadcasting through the pulsar itself, using its electromagnetic pulses to amplify their music across the entire system. Clever. Wasteful, but clever. All ships advance, ordered. Weapons free. Show these humans what real warriors look like. The fleet moved forward in standard attack formation. The 3 human cruisers didn't retreat. They didn't raise shields. They just hung there in space, music blasting, waiting. Then they moved. Had fought for 20 cycles. He had studied tactics from 100 different species. He thought he understood combat in all its forms. He was wrong. The human ships didn't move like normal vessels. They moved like the music sounded. Every maneuver was timed to the rhythm. They rolled on the downbeat. They accelerated on the crash of cymbals. They dived behind the pulsar on a guitar riff that screamed like a dying animal. Missiles launched in perfect time with the drums. Volleys fired on the crescendo of the human voices. It was as if the music wasn't accompanying the battle. The music was controlling it. The humans had turned combat into a dark, violent dance, and they knew every step. The USS Valkyrie emerged from behind the pulsar's radiation shadow, moving at impossible speed. It opened fire. 20 fighters exploded before they could react. The cruiser spun on its axis, missiles launching from every tube, and then vanished back into the pulsar's electromagnetic interference before return fire could connect. Where did it go? Demanded. His sensors couldn't penetrate the pulsar's radiation. The humans were using it as cover, emerging only to strike and then disappearing again. The second human cruiser, USS Artemis, appeared above the formation. It dove straight down, engines blazing, weapons firing in rhythm with the music. The drums pounded. The cruiser's cannons roared. 12 ships died in seconds. Then Artemis pulled up, turned, and vanished into the pulsar's shadow. Realized with growing horror that the humans had studied this system. They knew exactly how to use the pulsar's radiation. They knew where sensors would fail. They knew the timing of the electromagnetic pulses. They had turned this entire star system into a weapon, and they wielded it with the precision of a surgeon and the brutality of a butcher. The third cruiser, USS, appeared directly behind's command ship. How had it gotten there? The music grew louder, heavier, and opened fire at point-blank range. Shields held, but barely. His ship lurched forward, trying to escape. Then did something had never seen before. It matched speed with his command ship, stayed right on his tail, so close that their hulls almost touched. And while it stayed there, whilst gunners couldn't get a lock without risking friendly fire, his crew painted something on his hull. Paint in the middle of a battle. The humans sprayed black paint onto armor, creating an image, a skull, the same symbol from the USS. Then destroyed the ship next to his command vessel and vanished back into the radiation. The message was clear: we could have killed you. We chose not to. Think about that. Watched his fleet fall apart. The humans never stayed visible for more than a few seconds. They used the pulsar like a shield, emerging only to strike. Every attack was timed to their music, every maneuver perfectly synchronized. It was like fighting ghosts, violent, aggressive ghosts that killed with rhythm and precision. A thought occurred too, terrible in its implications. They hadn't fled because they were cowards. They had fled because they were smart. They had recognized something about humans that was only now beginning to understand. Humans didn't just fight wars, they performed them. They turned battle into art, death into poetry, violence into a symphony, and they had been doing this to each other for thousands of years on there. This was how they thought. This was how they operated. They had 40,000 years of civilization and military tradition. They had perfected warfare through careful study and disciplined execution. The humans had perfected warfare by doing it to themselves over and over again, and then they had made it beautiful. All ships said quietly, "Withdraw, emergency jump now." His fleet didn't argue. 40 ships were gone. 18 more were damaged, all bearing that same painted skull. The survivors jumped to hyperspace, fleeing the pulsar system and the 3 human cruisers that had destroyed them. As ship made the jump, he looked back one last time. The human ships weren't pursuing. They drifted there in formation, music still playing like dark angels guarding the gates of hell. The humans hadn't just won. They had made the look like amateurs, and they had done it while playing music. 6 months passed, the galaxy changed. In the central chambers of the Confederation of Sapient Species, representatives from 40 races gathered for an emergency session. The subject: humanity. In half a year, the humans had gone from unknown newcomers to the most talked-about species in 3 sectors. Every military power had heard the stories. The retreat, the defeat, dozens of smaller incidents where human ships had appeared, played their aggressive music, and either intimidated enemies into surrender or destroyed them with brutal efficiency. The Confederation wanted answers. Captain Maria Santos of the USS Persistence arrived alone. Her destroyer remained at the edge of the neutral station, visible through the massive viewports of the assembly chamber. For the first time in recorded history, a human warship kept its speakers silent. Maria stood in the center of the chamber, a small figure in her navy blue uniform. Around her, representatives from 40 species watched through their various sensory organs. Some had eyes, others had electromagnetic receptors. A few perceived the world through echolocation. All of them wanted to know the same thing. Why the music? The representative spoke first. His species communicated through bioluminescent patterns on their skin, translated by computers for other races. Captain Santos, humanity has violated 7 established conventions of civilized warfare. You broadcast on emergency frequencies. You use psychological warfare without warning. You treat combat as entertainment. Explain yourself. Maria looked at him calmly. Which would you prefer? That we kill efficiently and quietly, or that we give you a chance to surrender first? The music is not a chance to surrender. It's an intimidation tactic. Yes, Maria agreed, it is. And the ambassador in himself rose from his seat. His scales rippled with the colors of respect. Captain, I will be direct. Your species frightens us, not because of your weapons or your ships, because of how you approach war. You make it seem enjoyable. Maria nodded slowly. Would you like the truth, ambassador? That is why we're here. The truth, Maria said, looking around the chamber at all the assembled species, is that humans are very good at war. We've been doing it to each other for our entire history. Thousands of cultures, hundreds of nations, all of us killing each other over land, resources, religion, ideology. We've had 2 world wars, countless smaller ones. We nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons, multiple times. She walked slowly as she spoke, addressing different sections of the chamber. We learned how to fight in ways you can't imagine, not because we wanted to, because we had to. Because if we didn't, someone else would conquer us. So we got good at it. We got very, very good at it. A representative from the collective chittered a question. The translator rendered it as, and the music, what purpose does it serve? Everything, Maria said simply. Music is part of who we are. We have music for joy, music for sadness, music for celebration, music for mourning, and yes, music for war. When human soldiers went into battle throughout our history, they brought music with them. Drums to keep pace, horns to signal charges, songs to keep morale high. Music made us braver, made us fight harder, made us remember what we were fighting for. She stopped walking and faced the center of the chamber. When we went to the stars, we brought our music with us, because it's not just entertainment, it's who we are. It's in our bones, our blood, our culture. And when we fight, we play the music that makes us feel powerful, because war is terrifying, even for humans, and the music reminds us that we're the ones who should be feared. The representative, a warrior named Vex, leaned forward. You make war seem beautiful. That is dangerous. Is it? Maria's voice was soft but clear. You've all studied our history by now. You know what humans are capable of. We created weapons that could crack planets, viruses that could wipe out billions, machines that could think and kill without mercy. We've imagined every possible way to destroy not just our enemies but everything, and we've come very close to doing it. She paused, letting that sink in. But we didn't. We stepped back from the edge, not because we were weak, because we were terrified of what we'd become. So yes, we make war beautiful, because if we make it an art form, we make it something we can control, something with rules and rhythm and purpose. The alternative is making it mechanical, and a mechanical war fought by humans, that would be genuinely terrifying. The chamber was silent. Representatives processed this in their various ways. Finally, the Prime Arbiter, an ancient being whose species had maintained peace for 12,000 years, spoke. Captain Santos, what you describe is a species walking a knife's edge between civilization and savagery. Yes, Maria agreed. That's exactly what we are. Should we not be concerned? Maria smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. Ambassador N asked earlier why we fight the way we do. The answer is simple. We fight with music and art and ceremony because we're trying to stay civilized. The music you heard, that's us holding back. That's us giving you a chance. That's us trying to make war into something that has meaning beyond simple destruction. She gestured to the viewport where the USS Persistence drifted in silence. That ship out there has weapons that could level this entire station in 30 seconds. Every human warship does. We have the technology. We have the capability, but we don't use it. Not unless we have to, because we know where that path leads. We've walked it before on Earth and we barely survived. The representative chittered again. You claim the music is restraint. The music is warning, Maria corrected. It's us saying we're here, we're ready, you should leave. If we wanted to just kill, we wouldn't announce ourselves. We wouldn't give 30-second countdowns. We wouldn't paint skulls on enemy ships instead of destroying them. All of that, that's mercy. That's us being civilized. N stood again. His scales had changed color to something Maria's database identified as deep respect mixed with caution. "Captain, may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead." "The music your ships played, the genre you call heavy metal, I have studied it. In human culture, these are not your war songs. These are what you call entertainment. Songs about rebellion, freedom, personal struggle. Why use them in combat?" Maria's smile became genuine for the first time. "Because, Ambassador, those songs are about fighting back. They're about refusing to surrender. They're about standing up to power, facing impossible odds, and choosing to fight anyway. Those songs, they're what humanity sounds like when we decide we're not backing down." She let that statement hang in the air for a moment. "You want to know what human war songs sound like? The actual music we played when we marched to battle. Those are hymns. Slow, solemn, religious songs about sacrifice and duty and dying for your country. The heavy metal we play now, that's us having fun. That's us enjoying the fight." The implications of that statement rippled through the chamber. Various species made their equivalent of gasps or chittered or flashed patterns of alarm. "You enjoy combat?" the Prime Arbiter asked slowly. "Some of us do," Maria admitted. "Not all. Many humans hate violence. But those of us who join the military, who become soldiers and pilots and warriors, yes. Some of us love the challenge, the adrenaline, the test of skill against skill. That's why we volunteer. That's why we train. And that's why you should be grateful that we channel that love into art and ceremony instead of just letting it run wild." Vex, the warrior, made a sound that the translator rendered as respect. "You are predators who have learned to pretend to be civilized." "No," Maria corrected gently. "We're predators who have learned that civilization makes us stronger. There's a difference." The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued about sanctions, treaties, quarantine zones. Some wanted humanity restricted. Others wanted alliances. A few wanted nothing to do with humans at all. Finally, En rose one last time. His voice was quiet but carried through the chamber. "I propose we leave humanity alone. Give them their space. Establish trade if they're willing, but do not provoke them. Do not test them. Do not assume we understand them." "Why?" the Prime Arbiter asked. "You fled from 7 ships. Explain your reasoning." En's scales shifted to the color of absolute certainty. "Because I have studied human history. I have listened to their music. I have seen how they fight. And I have learned something that terrifies me more than their weapons or their ships." He paused, making sure every representative was listening. "The music they play in combat, the heavy metal they use to intimidate us, those are their love songs. Songs about rebellion and freedom and standing strong. That's what humans play when they're passionate, when they care, when they're fighting for something they believe in." The chamber went very still. "Now imagine," En continued, "what music they would play if they genuinely hated us, if they stopped caring about giving warnings or showing mercy, if they stopped treating war as art and started treating it as extermination. I have heard recordings of human funeral marches. Slow, mournful, final. That is what they play when something is dead and gone forever. I never want to hear that music played for us." The vote was called. The measure passed unanimously. Humanity would be left alone, their territory respected, their colonies undisturbed. Trade routes would be established, but only with human permission, and no Confederation member would provoke or test humanity without full council approval. Maria thanked them for their time and returned to the USS Persistence. As her shuttle docked, she opened a private channel to her crew. "Did they buy it?" her weapons officer asked. Maria grinned. "Completely. We're officially too scary to mess with." "Think it'll last?" "Long enough," Maria said. She walked onto the bridge and settled into her captain's chair. Around her, the crew prepared for departure. "Long enough for us to build more ships, establish more colonies, and really figure out how to survive out here." She pulled up the ship's music library and scrolled through thousands of songs. Heavy metal, classical, jazz, rock, hip-hop. country, every genre humanity had ever created, all stored and ready to play, some for intimidation, some for enjoyment, some just because. "Set course for home," she ordered, "and cue up something fun for the trip. We've earned it." As the USS Persistence turned toward human space, its speakers came alive. Not with aggressive metal this time, with something lighter, a human song about going home, seeing loved ones, celebrating survival. Because that was the thing the galaxy didn't understand yet. Humans could make war beautiful and terrifying, but they could also make peace beautiful and welcoming. The music changed depending on context. And right now, after months of tense negotiations and veiled threats, Maria and her crew wanted to celebrate. They had done what they came to do. They had made humanity seem powerful and dangerous, and just unstable enough that no one wanted to test them. They had bought time for their species to grow, to learn, to become strong enough to defend themselves properly. And they had done it all with music and attitude, and just enough carefully controlled violence to make the point stick. 6 months later, reports would reach the Confederation about human colonies spreading through 3 systems, about trade agreements and cultural exchanges and humans being surprisingly friendly once you got to know them, about their music being diverse and beautiful, not just aggressive. But every report would note the same thing. Every human ship, civilian or military, carried external speakers. Every human station had sound systems that could be heard across space. The music varied, but the capability was always there. The message was clear. Humans could be friends, they could be trading partners, they could be allies. But they could also, at any moment, switch their playlist and become something else entirely. Something that made war into art and death into poetry. Something that had survived thousands of years of fighting itself and come out stronger for it. The galaxy had been warned, and the galaxy had listened. Maria Santos closed her eyes as the USS Persistence jumped to hyperspace, soft music playing through the speakers, and smiled. Humanity had a future among the stars, and they had earned it the only way they knew how. By being exactly who they were, and making everyone else deal with it.